girls are concerned with birds hitting the windows, so they are making some feather bird window protectors today. They've been able to practice some measurement skills and some basic sewing skills to make this a reality. Now they're making friends with the chipmunk.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Hello, friends. I have a feeling that with this whole coronavirus thing that we're kind of at the hump right now, at least in many of the countries that you're watching from. I mean, things are going to be different in some other countries, but we're at the hump, and this is a really vital time. Really vital time. I think the truth is, the deeper truth is that any moment in our life is the moment when transformation is ultimately possible. It's really easy to get stuck into the thought of, well, if I would have made change yesterday, I wouldn't be in prison today. Or if I make that change a week from now. But right now is the moment to seize. And that's the one where true change is possible, no matter where you are in your life. You've landed in prison, here you are. Yesterday is not a time when we can make change anymore, but now is. Still, this is a pivotal time, I think, in human history, an incredibly unique moment when amazing transformation is possible.
Yeah, the question is, what will we do?
Yeah.
I think that there are a lot of things that I, for one, would like to go back to normal, like hugging. I would like to hug my friends and my family and people that I meet at the grocery store that I know and say, oh, how are you? And give them hugs. We need to bring back hugs.
That is a good normal, right?
That's a very good normal. But there's other things that I have a concern about. The environment, for example. We're learning so much. I mean, when else have we been able to have a worldwide, completely global experiment on, hey, everybody, just stop driving and stop flying so much and stop all the things that are polluting and get to see what happens to the planet? Unbelievable. And I think about that and I wonder, how can we keep that if we, quote, go back to normal?
That normal contrasts with what I see a lot of, especially more dramatic voices out there in the media or on YouTube, who seem very concerned that things are going to fall apart. But I think most of us, probably our bigger fear is that things would return to normal, or some version of normal that isn't too far off from what normal was. And I think the reality is that that is the direction that our culture will go back to. And there's a good chance that we are going to be feeling a lot of pressure returning us to that normal that we knew before, or again, a slight variant of it. When I think about that, I think about the power of habit.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say, it's like any habit. And as you were talking about, this is a pivotal time right now to look at our habits. And when we talk about normal, quote, normal from before, a lot of times, and maybe some of you will see this too and have the same viewpoint, the normal seemed really abnormal to me. So in a sense, I think the fear is that we're going to go back to the abnormal kind of falling apart world that we had before, and that this new normal, I talked about hugs. I really like seeing people being kind, people supporting each other, people stopping what they're doing, reaching out, helping strangers. That kind of kindness, that kind of awareness, that kind of being present with what's actually happening, as opposed to sort of our throwaway culture from before, where a lot of things were disposable.
Including people.
Yeah, and
including the environment,
and
right?
that's,
yeah.
I'm guilty of a lot of that. We've talked a little bit in some of our videos about trying to go more trash-free, more plastic-free. Plastic is everywhere. That's one place where I look and I say, oh, look at, I just bought this and it has so much plastic, but I really want to eat these good organic greens and I don't have a garden right now. that's a whole other video. However, what I'm saying is that we all have habits, and we have habits as individuals, we have habits as a culture, and it's sometimes not necessarily, quote, our fault that we've gotten sucked into this. We've been raised as children with these different ideas as a culture. And so now as a culture, we need to ask ourselves, what habits do we want to have? We don't necessarily want to be returning to that abuse situation just because that's what we're familiar with. A lot of times, I've known this in my life, I stick with something that's bad for me because it's familiar, and at least it's familiar, even if it's negative, versus this wide unknown.
That's a powerful word, abuse. And some people would look at a lot of what we're saying and say, no, we just want to go back to normal. Normal worked for a small amount of people that were, much wealthier. That you look at our politicians in the United States, how completely out of touch they are with the actual experiences of a lot of people. So
I have to just jump in and say there are very good politicians.
There are
out
some
there
really.
Too. So there's a lot of people who are political, who are really have their hearts in the right places. Yet I think we can take that group and look and see there's some very standout cases of people who are not doing things the way that I feel is with a heart.
And I feel like this is equally on both sides of the political spectrum, that we see that there's this non-recognition of what the average person goes through. And the average person in the United States has tons of debt. They're working at a job often that they don't like, just trying to make ends meet,
trying to pay off a student loan, and then you have kids, and then that's expensive, and then you might have a health issue come up, and you're just scrabbling to get to the surface, is what it seems like.
And it's a cultural dynamic. It's something that we've created. We can say, yes, people have choices, but there's so much cultural pressure to buy a house, to get married, to have a child, that we have to recognize, go to school. Yeah, go to school. I mean, how many people have we had come out to ReWild University who say, boy, I went to college and I'm hugely in debt and I'm not even using my degree. Yeah. What did I do? But that was all the pressure was there. When you talk about an abuse situation, my mom used to do some really great work with domestic abuse. And so I got to see a little bit behind the scenes there of how people could stay, men or women, would often stay in an abusive situation because, as you were saying, the abusive situation can take on a strange sort of comfort because it's familiar. We might know that we need to get out of that situation, but what waits on the other side, this huge unknown, that fear of the unknown can become a more powerful and driving emotion than the staying there, the pain of staying where we are. So here we are, and we have all experienced this huge experiment that nobody could even, I think, imagine would happen. No. To take all the cars off the road, to have the reduced human impact on the environment. It has shown the truth. We poop in our bathtub. That's what we do. We poop in our bathtub.
Oh, I was like, what are you talking about? And my mind is going, where is this video going all of a sudden? I thought I knew what we're talking about. You're talking about the way that we care for the planet and the fact that when we stop our negative human impacts, we see a difference. And actually, we see it fairly rapidly.
We do, amazingly so.
Okay, but I want to say something else.
Yeah.
I kind of think that there's also how do I put this? A metaphorical pooping in our bathtub too, with our lives. We allow ourselves to muddy our own waters or those of other people. And I think the other thing that's really interesting about this whole, we'll call it worldwide experiment, is what I was talking about earlier, where people are reaching out and helping each other. And that's tremendous. There's so much caring going on. People putting just signs up on the side of the road, thank you to our medical workers, or thank you, or, everybody stay strong, we're in this together. Those things mean I don't practically break down crying, because it's like that to me is what the human essence is about. I think we're still here as a creature because we helped each other. We've helped each other in the past. We continue to help each other. When we stop helping each other, we won't make it anymore. But the question is then, how do we let go of our weird, abnormal, normal past where we kind of have been abusing ourselves and the planet and each other? And what's our path forward? How do we create that? What does it even look like personally and culturally?
And that change, of course, cultural change begins with you, begins with me, begins with all of us making a personal change. And if enough of us do that, it creates a cultural change. We can look here and we can say, wow, okay. It's a chipmunk that goes back and forth here.
It's so cute.
And we can say, in LA, the air is so clean. A environmental scientist was looking and saying that the air in Los Angeles is some of the cleanest air in the world right now, because naturally where it is, it has really clean air. So not just the cleanest it's ever been in Los Angeles, but cleanest in the world, which is completely the opposite of the usual smog-laden city that is. That came from reduced driving. The cars aren't sitting there pooping in the bathtub all the time. So then we can say, could I drive less? And just one little change, like could I drive less, can instigate all sorts of other change in our lives.
Well, we've seen a number of our friends, a number of you, who have said, wow, I really don't want to do anything online. That just doesn't sound right. And have switched to doing online classes, online different options of offering what your skills are online or working from home. And that, of course, does reduce the driving. I'm not always a fan of technology, yet at the same time, I've heard from some people who said, wow, this frees up so much of my time. I'm not driving however many times a week to go do this thing. I can hop on my computer. I can connect with people for my job or whatever I am doing. And then I have all this free time where I can be in my garden. I can be all these different things that I can do, go visit my friends.
That creates, so the person you're thinking of, their more nature time she's getting, more family time she's getting, and that changes us, changes who we are and how we integrate with the world. So one criticism of this could be, well, should we all just sit on our computers then and interact with each other? But often that lack of drive time and saying, maybe I can do some of my work online, is going to create more time for developing your own interests, for getting nature time, for getting more family connection. That's going to develop habits of more actual connection. If I'm going to drive less, another way this might impact me is instead of driving down to see my family and driving back in the same day, I might say I'm going to drive down, I'm going to stay there for a while and spend a little bit more time.
Chipmunk just went right under our legs.
Girls are trying to make friends with it, and they are.
Next.
It's a very brave little chipmunk.
Little changes have a big impact, especially when we all do them. And my big question for everybody out there, all of you that have been with us and are watching us, to ask, what changes have you noticed in your life that have had a positive impact both on yourself and on your surroundings and perhaps on the planet? And how can you keep them? What is working for you that you could keep? I know for us, I've been learning that I don't need to go to the grocery store all the time. I can go to the grocery store every other week or every 2 weeks. If I just make a list, if I think about it, if I go slowly and I'm actually present at the grocery store. I like to go to the co-op, so I like to take my time, look at things, and it's kind of becomes fun because I have to be there and I don't want to forget something versus kind of what has been before. Oh, we got to get home. We got this to do. Quick run around, grab some stuff. Oh, shoot, you get back home. You know, we're 25, 30 minutes from a grocery store and I forgot the butter. Drat. So I'm learning that that's one thing that we can do.
Doing that has encouraged us to get more of our food from the wild.
Yeah.
Because, well, greens aren't going to necessarily keep for 2 weeks, so
but they're so
gets us
yummy when
out.
they're from the wild, and then we go out as a family, and it's really delicious. And that might be something that some of you have been doing, is eating from the wild. That's incredible. Another place where it's great for your health in so many ways.
So what we are encouraging, so, Bill, word.
Oh, so
What
like,
we're
you know,
encouraging, I've heard us do a couple.
we're still working.
What we're encouraging is actually a pretty radical look at each of our lives and saying, what happened during this time? Where did our water, our bathtub, become cleaner? And then how could we make life shifts that would keep that water clean? And I'm talking here both about the bathtub water of our environment that we all share, and I'm talking about the same thing you were speaking of, which is our internal bath water, and how can we keep that clean?
Well,
It's going to be different for each person, right?
yeah, perhaps you got to spend some time at home with your kids and you actually loved it, and you're thinking to yourself, how can I do this more? Now is the time to really, really look at things. And we were just talking yesterday about how we've known some people, when we were in Hawaii, there was a family in particular that they had been living in their space for a long time with their dogs and their family, and it was a rental space, and all of a sudden the person who rented it said, oh, sorry, I'm selling it, gotta go, got 2 weeks. And they had to, uproot their entire family, their pets, everything, where they'd been living for years and years. And that's just something they had to do. But what if we turned that around and you said, okay, someone's just told me you now have to stay home and you have to homeschool your kids and be with your kids more, and this is something that you want, why don't we do that? Why don't we say, oh, I've got to figure this out? As opposed to just falling back to those habits and saying, well, I'd really love that. That would be like a dream and not going to work. Why don't we imagine we've been thrust into that situation in the same way? Say, we've got to figure this out.
So here's what's going to happen. We're going to come down the other side of this hump, and there's going to be a drive back to, again, probably not the exact normal that we knew before, but a derivation of that normal that isn't qualitatively at its heart all that different than what it was before. And that it's not just coming from the top, the people on the top that want to keep things as it was comfortable for them. It's coming from all of us who are habitualized to certain cultural ideals, accepting certain things. Your life, it's okay if your life is just used to pay some debt to a credit card company that has 20% whatever the debt thingy is on it. That
Are you talking about the interest
APR?
rate?
Yeah.
Like,
That's
what?
fine. That's fine for you to spend the next 10, 15 years just slaving away trying to pay that off because the company is allowed to do that and thinks that that's ethical.
Yeah, there's a lot of backwards things.
Is this okay? Or can we make shifts? And of course, we are not talking about anything violent. We're not talking about trying to put other people down, even the people on top. We need to change hearts.
Yeah.
We've tried it with guns and swords all through history, and it's just a repeated cycle. It just happens over and over. It's like the Cylons. This happens again and again and again. Here is this unique moment in time when we can make change in a different way. Maybe we've learned our lesson after all of this time, and we see we've been pooping in our
bathtub.
in our
Oh my
bathtub
gosh.
and in our own bathtub, our collective bathtub and our own, and we can do things differently.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be drastic. As we talked about, maybe you just go grocery shopping less. Or for us, I know we've been doing without some things that we need. We just came back from Hawaii. We don't have like measuring spoons and this and that and the other thing. But it does make me think a lot of times, what can I use instead? And maybe we don't have to have our latte every morning from Starbucks. And maybe we don't have to have...
People are going to think we get a latte from Starbucks. We've never had a latte from Starbucks.
Well, anyway, you know what I'm saying? I'm saying those things you kind of feel that you have to have, and they are little rewards for yourself, but maybe there's different rewards out there, and maybe you don't have to have the latest phone right now, or whatever it is. Maybe we don't have to be consumers in the huge way, maybe we can say, I am going to spend some money and I want to support a local artisan. I want to support my neighbor. I want to be local. Or maybe you're going to support something across the world, but you're going to say, look, these people are awesome. They're doing, totally organic and they're ethical.
Fair trade, and really making sure their workers are
treated
well.
nicely, and starting to think about the human element and how the human element impacts the entire environmental element. My gosh, have we gone on long enough?
I think so. But
I just want to hear what people are going to say too.
I am really interested because I think all of us have the wisdom to see, wow, this has been a huge life change, and to pull out the elements that have made a big change for you. So even if you don't do something that feels drastic to you, the change can be radical just by saying, I am going to consume less. I'm going to drive less. I'm going to really notice how much difference it made when I saw everybody around me as part of my tribe, part of my group, instead of separating people out into these different arbitrary categories and then trying to treat them like
of smiling at strangers.
Oh,
I have had so many more smiles, people saying hello, even though we're distanced. It just feels so nice. It's like, I see you, you're a human being. Wow, we're on the planet. This weird thing is happening, and whoa.
Have you experienced this? People are way nicer now. They're seeing connection.
At least that's what I've experienced. And wouldn't it be neat if all of us could get together sometime? What if all of us were in one place at one time? There's so many, all of you out there, you share so many amazing, interesting things. I learn so much from you all the time. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. Your thoughts, your ideas, what you've been noticing, what you might want to change. It really informs my entire existence and what I think about. And the collaboration is amazing, and we have so much to learn from each other. I'm really hopeful.
So let's share down in the comments. So excited to see the conversation that happens down there. What have you noticed? What shifts are you going to make? What can you hold on to and transform through this? What's really shown itself to be vital that before was buried under the distraction of media, of working constantly, of normal, of the normal. One last little clue or tip is that there's so much power in slowing down.
Oh yeah.
So many of us got to experience this during this time and are still going to be able to experience this. If you're in lockdown in Wisconsin, we're still at stay-at-home orders for another month. Yeah. So still this time of slowing down. And when we slow down, we can see things that before were hidden and invisible, just covered up by that frenetic energy and distraction, which becomes a static that covers up the important things in life. Love you all so much and cannot wait to see what you have to say in the comments.